So I want to thank everybody for joining us today and painting with me. I especially want to thank Rachel and Corey that are behind the scenes recording all of this for you. And I think this is going to be a fun one to do. Rachel picked up a relatively easy one for people to do at home. I'm going to get started by tracing the stencils. I have the elk stencil and the letter C stencil for the Colorado flag. And I'm going to trace in Sharpie pens so that it will be visible on camera, but you guys can trace with your pencils. I will say that when you trace the C, draw lightly. And when you trace the elk, it doesn't matter, you can draw as dark as you like. The paints we're using, you should have 4 little cups of paint. The paints are acrylic, so if you're wearing good clothes, go change into grubby clothes or put on an apron, because they will stain clothing kind of permanently. And if you don't mind, as soon as you're not using a brush, rinse it, or at least leave it in the rinse cup so that your brushes make it to the end of the painting at least. I'm going to start by tracing the C, and again, trace lightly if you're doing it in pencil. The little circles on the stencils are there from a byproduct of making the stencils, so don't feel like you have to trace those. They're nothing in the final picture. And then what's interesting about the C is that to complete the circle, you just flip it. And this is especially a line that you're going to want to draw very lightly. And again, in black, it's going to show like crazy when I get done. And then remember that the elk's legs are clipped by the mountainside. So if you want to just calculate the shape of your little hilltop and then make sure that your elk's legs cross that line, then you can draw in the elk. And again, if you want to draw this dark, no problem, because the pencil lines won't show through the black ink, black paint, I mean. Some of you may be doing a bison silhouette. I've provided some alternative animals for if you're not doing an elk, or some people will think this is a large deer. Either way, if you're not doing this one, you might be doing the bison. It's the same process, and in both cases, your animal can face left or right. So set that up as you like. And anybody who doesn't want to do the Colorado C, you're welcome to skip it and just make it a wildlife landscape picture. And when you're returning all your supplies, that your brushes, and I would really enjoy getting the stencils back so that I don't have to make more next time I do this painting. So if you don't mind returning them, that would be wonderful. So hopefully you can see that on camera. Like I say, with pencil it would be much more light. So the good news about the pencil, or in my case the ink lines, is that the yellow, orange, and dark orange paints are very see-through. They're among my most see-through colors. So as you're painting, don't hesitate to get yellow or orange on your elk or your bison, because it won't show later when the black goes on over. The bottom, though, you don't have to paint it yellow or orange at all if you don't want to. I'm going to start with the yellow and just worry about the bottom of it first. And I'm spreading it out pretty thin, and it is a warm, dry day today. So if you find that your paint is dry, when you move on to the next color and you want blending to happen, the way to make sure that it blends, if this yellow were already dry, is to add some more yellow right at the transition before you do the next color, And once you get the next color in, and you'll notice I didn't even have to clean my brush between the yellow and the orange because we're going to do this where they blend together anyway. The more times you go back and forth where you're overlapping both colors, the more blending happens. So the more you want it to look soft and blended, the more times you go back and forth. Your sunset, or you could look at this as a sunrise if you like, doesn't have to be a continual progression from light to dark. It could go back to yellow before it goes back to orange again. And I am going to stop and paint the yellow in the center of the sea. I did clean my brush because I had orange in it. I am going to get this yellow painted. And I don't care if I get yellow in there because the red will cover it. And now if you drew lightly, your pencil line will barely show where to stop. And obviously my black line is going to be visible forever. My yellow will never cover that. But that's get ahead of the game. Step 2, make sure the center of your sun Colorado flag symbol is yellow. So I'm going to go back now to do an orange. And at any time I can add some of the darker orange into it and do a streak that way, and I can go light, dark as much as I want, or I can eventually just decide to stick with the dark color and take it all the way to the top. You may find that painting the edges as you go is a good way to make sure they get done. If you hang your painting without a frame, painting the edges makes it look a lot neater. So if you want to paint the edges, kind of do it as you go, because then you'll have the right color in your brush when you get there. It's also totally feasible to mix your colors together on your plate and get an in-between color so you don't have to work as hard at blending if you don't want to. Okay, so I'm just wrapped up doing the rest of the sky, and any alternating colors of orange and red orange and yellow that you like. You also have red that's primarily for doing the C on the Colorado flag symbol, but you may also use some of it in the sky if you want. I didn't, but you're welcome to do that. Just make sure you reserve enough to do your C if you're doing one at all. When it comes to doing the C, everybody has a tiny brush, and you're welcome to outline the C with the tiny brush before you try to fill in, but I'm just going to jump in and go for it, and go ahead and do that either way you want. I will tell you that the red can appear kind of streaky. So if your red streaks, just know that as soon as it dries, all you have to do is add a second layer of red and the streaks will disappear. And you can see that most of the mistakes I made painting over the sea are totally obliterated by the red because the yellow and orange are in the same color family. So you can be more careful than that and get a cleaner edge, but that's the basic idea with doing the sea. Also, if you wanted some more darker reds in the sky, you could do that now too. All right, then the last step is to do the elk. So with your black paint, what really helps is to keep adding water to your black, a few drops of water on top of your black and stir it into the edge. This tiny brush, if you spin it, you can get the point to be sharp, and with a sharp point, you can come back in and do the antlers more cleanly. And if you'll notice where my pinky finger is, I have discovered for myself, and this may or may not work for you, that having your pinky finger resting on the dry yellow paint will help your brush not wiggle and shake as much as it would have. So for me, touching the canvas with my pinky steadies my hand while I'm painting the antlers or the horns. Some people like to paint from the tip in. I do that usually, but it goes either way, so you can just, if you're making it skinnier at the end, you have to just release pressure on your brush, and if you're going the other way, you just increase pressure as you want it to get wider. You'll find that you run out of paint pretty fast with this little brush, so I just want you to know that it's primarily for outlining. Trying to paint the whole elk with this little brush would be a little bit of a nightmare, trying to keep dipping for paint all the time. I had people paint this in the past that chose to put the eye in and let it stay yellow, and I will tell you, it looked very haunting. It was almost like the Bronco at the airport in Denver. Yeah, it was a little scary, so just, if you want to do that, go for it, but fair warning, it'll keep you awake at night. Again, more water added to your black will make it go on like ink instead of like heavy paint. And I'm going to stop now and get some more water. Because that matters more than you know. I have to tell you honestly that not getting to hear you folks and answer questions is driving me nuts. I really wish that we were painting live and we could do that. So I have more sympathy for Bob Ross now than I ever did. I can imagine now why he was talking to all of his happy clouds and happy trees all the time. He's going a little bit stir crazy doing this. He painted like 400 paintings live on air, and every time he painted a painting, he'd already painted it twice before he got live on camera, so that he knew A, what he was going to paint, and B, he knew how to make it only take a half an hour. And just coincidentally, that's my goal for now, is to make this video come out to be half an hour or less. Same with the tail. If you want to add a tail, go for it. I found that people had a hard time doing tails, so I've left it off, but it's easy to add. So from here on out, I'm switching back to my large brush, because you can really go to town with it now. And you can fill in the hill and the elk in a matter of seconds with this brush. And again, if you see any places where the lighter color is showing through the black, just give it a moment to dry and come back and fill it in. Anybody who's better at an animal anatomy than me, you're welcome to modify my stencil and draw it better, but just so you know, I cut that out with a saber saw, so if it's not perfect, I apologize. And then the hill is whatever you want it to be shape-wise, and you can have rocks or bushes or whatever. I'll show you that when you scrunch your brush into your plate, it will allow you to do some grass if you care to make your hilltop be a little less barren. And again, when you get done, you can paint the bottom edge black so that it doesn't show white on the wall later when you hang it. Feel free to add any birds in the sky or any other items you care to add to this. Make it your own. And don't forget to sign it. I always encourage people to make sure they sign. In this case, you don't have any colors to sign over the black, so you're probably going to want to either get a Sharpie pen and sign it at the end when your yellow is dry, or use your tiny brush and your black paint to sign. And that's it. Guys, thank you very much for doing this. I hope we get to do it again live soon, and I get to see everybody again. Thank you.